Wednesday. And they sent them on Thursday. Hang on. You couldn't do it.
Okay, I'm gonna call the Finance Committee of February 21st, 23. We are in the caucus room with all of council present, Mayor, Director of Law, HR, Recreation, Special Assistant to the Mayor, and our guests. The topic on the agenda is the permanent appropriations for the year 2023, which is 2023-21. You may have noticed in my roll call, we do not have a representative from the department, Finance Department here. We do have Mr. Carney from Service. So as you may have surmised from my comments and questions during our finance hearing last week, there is an issue that is rubbing me the wrong way on this that I think we need to look at. During the temporary appropriations discussion of the budget, we moved forward on the premise that the income assumptions were going to change and there was going to be new numbers and we would have more information to make decisions. We have the same, or virtually the same, revenue projections we had in the temporary budget, which includes a more than 10% reduction in our income tax revenues. The way we have approached this budget does not reflect that reality in a long-term outlook. For example, at the moment, as introduced, the budget would leave the general fund at the end of the year with $22,000 left in the account. That is not sustainable long-term. So, I have, with our clerk's help, I don't have an exhaustive list, but I have reached out to other communities to find out if they have similar projections of a double-digit negative income tax outlook. We are unique to the best of what I've been able to find. I've only been able to find one community that even had a negative income tax outlook for the year, and that was negative 2.75%, not in excess of 10. As a city council, it's our job to, one of our primary jobs is to appropriate funds. One of two things has to be largely true in this situation. Either funds are not being represented in this budget and are not available for us to evaluate and weigh and make appropriations, or we are too aggressively spending. I think this is a discussion we need to continue to have with the finance department. I strongly suspect that as we move forward through the year, we will have income tax and other revenues every month that exceed a negative double-digit income tax, and that this will quickly become clear that in fact we are not going to end up with $22,000 in the account at the end of the year. We will be back to levels that are more customary that we are used to seeing. So at the moment, I am inclined to hold this legislation in committee until we have another opportunity to speak with the finance department. We need to pass this by April 1st. We are in the third week of February, so we have some time on this. But I want to be collaborative, and I want to hear from the rest of council if folks want to go this approach, or if you have different thoughts as to how to proceed on this issue.
I would agree with you, Mr. Chair.
I know the finance department mentioned that they had run those by with Rita and had gotten confirmation that they were reasonable and consistent. So I guess what I would ask is, given that we are drawing down the general fund, what's our strategy if we do see a larger increase? Are we going to be able to devote that to the general fund, and do we expect to have a bigger balance there, or what fund would that go to? I know we talked about trying to build some additional funds in reserve for larger capital expenses in the future, so I'd be interested in just having some additional conversations on that. But you know, I don't doubt the revenue estimations were a little different than some of the other communities based on our sectors of revenue. So I'm fine holding it, given the time period, and getting whoever's questions needed be answered.
Mr. Strong?
Thank you. I'm also in favor of getting some answers. Like you said, we have until April 1st, if we have to have a special meeting or whatever we have to do to make sure we get it done. Let's get all the answers we need.
So I do think we have to have some questions though, right? Like some better questions for them to address. So I don't know how you want to proceed in that and kind of getting those pulled together. I know we had a kind of a quick turnaround between last Tuesday and this Tuesday to get things addressed. But you know, I think we need to kind of lay the framework here of what's the strategy.
There's, to my mind, there are questions I've outlined that may proceed as disagreements in terms of just how could North Olmsted be so unique? What about North Olmsted could be so unique that we are double-digit decreases? A decrease in the income tax, the size of when the economy shut down in 2020. We're talking about. We're not talking about a casual the recession or even 2008. We're talking about COVID shutdown level income tax reduction here. So that may be a disagreement. What I think might be more productive as we go forward is to somewhat what your point was, Mr. Winford, which was, what do we do moving forward? And so I'm not interested in rating special revenue accounts just to put the general fund at $1 million for the sake of putting it at $1 million. But for us to, as revenue comes in, if additional revenue comes in via above this forecast, to prioritize not spending those funds and putting them back to the general fund and putting us in a position that if this were the case, we are in a position to succeed long term. And if we have even the same income tax collections this year as next year, we're talking over $2 million more. And so there's opportunity to make those long-term investments and to start making down payments on those long-term needs that we've all talked about here numerous times, whether it's moving forward with the next step in dispatch, resolving the pool at the rec center, or any number of infrastructure needs around the city hall, and quite frankly throughout the city. So any other comments or questions? Okay. Well, I apologize that we don't have anyone here to further discuss this with, but at this time I will move to hold 2023-21 and ask for a second. Second by Mr. Limper. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3-0. And we will conclude at 7:39. Thank you.
That's not safe.
Send people on out of state trips, for example. I'm not looking to spend a budget, but I strongly suspect that will happen. If we hold a meeting in a month, and the month after that, we will see that the revenues are dropping, which is fine, just like practically we did. No, I mean, if you have ideas or suggestions you want to raise. Yes. We have budget deficits this month. Certain states, we have actually very limited in how we budget. But we all know that there are major expansions throughout this budget in each year. If we see this
Nothing else.
and revenues coming in as projected, then we need to make adjustments. We can't wait till the end of the year. On that front. Six. That's what I'm saying. That's it. Yeah. This one, I agree, yeah, I got it.
Somebody just passed it through this line. I found my key.
The caucus meeting of February 21st, 2023 will now come to order at 7:45 p.m. Present are all members of council. The mayor is present, not president yet, I'm sorry.
In your dreams.
The directors of law, HR, service, and recreation, special assistant to the mayor, and guests. If there are no additions or corrections, the caucus meeting minutes of February 7th, 2023 are approved as written. Regarding suspension, there are 4 items on the agenda being requested for suspension this evening. The first is resolution 2023-5, which is on second reading. Mayor Jones, would you like to speak to this one?
Yes, Mr. President, Director Pinchuk.
Thank you, Mayor. The resolution is for our purchase, or actually going out to bid for our sprayer equipment for fertilization at Springville Golf Course. This will replace an aging piece of equipment that is over 20 years old. The bid process will give us the best price, and we are looking forward to doing this and getting it ordered, because the delay time on the equipment itself is going to take some time. So we have not even received lawnmowers that we purchased last year, so we're hoping to get this out to bid as soon as possible.
Thank you. Any objections from council to suspension?
No.
Also being requested for suspension is resolution 2023-12, which is also on second reading. Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Director Carney will handle the concrete answer.
Well, council, this is a yearly task that we have to perform to get the lowest and best bid for concrete for all the tests that we perform during the year, and the earlier the better, to hopefully get a lower price. Concrete is up, skyrocketed, along with everything else.
Any objections from council to suspension on this one? Okay. Next is resolution 2023-16, also on second reading. Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the resolution adopting the all hazards mitigation plan that Cuyahoga County had put forward to our city and all the cities here in the county. We're requesting suspension because the county has asked for this to be passed as soon as possible. Once that is passed, then we are then in compliance with what the county has requested of the city.
Thank you, Mayor. Any objections from council to suspension? All right, and lastly, being requested for suspension is resolution 2023-26, which is on first reading. There.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. This is authorizing our public safety director to request proposals to provide wellness program services for our public safety personnel. And this is a part of the grant that we did receive from the state of Ohio. You'll remember about a month ago, we had received notice that the city did receive this public safety grant. However, a portion of the grant is requiring us to get RFPs from 3 different companies and then provide that to the state. So this legislation before you tonight would just allow for us to do that, and we would then submit that to the state of Ohio to be in compliance with the grant that we received.
Alrighty. Any objections from council to suspension on 2023-26? Okay. Assigning legislation, resolution 2023-26 and ordinance 2023-27 will be assigned to public safety, health, and welfare. Resolution 2023-30 will be assigned to building, zoning, and development. Ordinance 2023-24 and resolution 2023-25 will be assigned to recreation, public parks, and buildings. And ordinances 2023-23, 2023-28, as well as resolutions 2023-29 and 2023-31 will be assigned to finance. We're gonna schedule a public hearing for April 4th, 2023 at 7:40 p.m. To discuss ordinance 2023-18. Actually, it's regarding ordinance 2023-18. And then before scheduling committee meetings for Tuesday, February 28th, we're going to revise the start time for the committee of the whole. Previously, we scheduled that to begin at 6:45 based on the assumption that that was going to be about an hour-long presentation. We've been advised that The presentation is actually going to be closer to 15 minutes regarding economic development. And so we'll start at 7 instead of 6:45 with an expected end time around 7:30 p.m. With that in mind, Councilwoman Williamson, would you like to schedule public safety public welfare?
Yes. You guys, can maybe set it at 7:20?
Committee of the whole is gonna go to about 7:30.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, then I'll do 7:30, and that would be, to address 2023-27. And I would request that the mayor or her designee be present, and I think I'll need about 5 minutes for that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Lippert, would you like to schedule building, zoning, and development?
I would, did you say 20
5 minutes.
5 minutes,
5
okay,
minutes.
so, 7:35 on the 28th, and I would ask the economic development director be present, and then any other, the mayor's designees. This statement of, just for clarification, this is just a housing market analysis, this isn't assessing the property for feasibility of housing, right? Or is that part of the scope?
No, you're correct.
So, that's all I do. And I would guess, what about 10 minutes? 5, 10? We'll just leave this.
Mr. President, to the councilman, I would say that it would probably be 5 minutes. It's just asking council to give us the authority to get the statements of qualifications. And obviously then we would come back to council, when we found a suitable.
Okay. Yeah, so, go to 7:40,
All right.
if it goes longer, it goes longer.
And then Councilwoman Heeman for recreation, public parks, and buildings.
Yes, thank you. 7:40 to 45 if it goes a little longer than, but I don't expect it to go much more than that, certainly I think 10 minutes. And if Director Pinchuk would be there, please, and the mayor and anyone else that she would like. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And lastly, Councilman Glassburn for finance.
Sorry, repeat.
7:45 is my vote.
Okay. Finance will meet at 7:45 to discuss 23, 28, 29, and 31. We'll request the Director of Economic Development, HR, and any designated mayor's choice for those pieces of legislation.
Thank you. Does anyone on council have anything else they wish to bring up this evening?
Mr. President, I think perhaps also adding the budget appropriations to that might be in order as well.
Thank you. Anything from the administration?
No, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Seeing nothing else, the caucus meeting of February 21st, 2023 is adjourned at 7:54 p.m.